Hello and welcome to the Rangers Review. Normally, Euan Robertson would be outside Auchenhowie. He's not there because it was a bit drizzly and I had a meeting. So he's back at home, but we're still going to talk about what took place today at the Rangers news event ahead of their trip away to Germany to go on their pre-season camp. Now, this was set up to give you a bit of inside baseball because Rangers want to be completely shut off from the world to focus on team building, training, building the kind of putting together the foundations of what will hopefully be a successful season for the club. And I don't think they want to be having to worry about talking to guys like us out there, etc. So what the club have done, have put up a few guys for us to speak to. Now, it's embargoed, so we can't really talk about what was said beyond Jack Butland, which can go out today. That is on the YouTube channel. You can see it there. Really, really interesting 9.5 minutes with the former England international, talking about his future, talking about why he signed, talking about the pool of Glasgow Rangers. Really, really interesting. In the days ahead, we will also have Euan. If you can confirm, it's Kieran Dowell alongside Butland, Sam Lammers, and who was the other one?
John
Sterling. So these interviews will be put out on the channel over the next few days, and I think they'll all be pretty interesting. Now, we can't go into detail of what was said, any of the ones that are embargoed, but we can talk, as I say, about Jack Butland. So, Euan, tell me what your impressions were, because having watched the video, a very composed, impressive speaker, very commanding in what he had to say, and just very authoritative in general. Looks like a future manager in the making for me.
He spoke incredibly well. You can tell that he's been media trained. He's played at the highest level in England. He's played for England. He knew what to say, and he presented himself, I thought, really, really well. I thought he spoke really impressively. He said all the right things. There was loads of interesting parts to what Butland said. Obviously, his motivations for going to Rangers and turning down a contract offer at Manchester United. He talked about Andy Gorham and Alan McGregor. He called Gorham the goalie, and he called McGregor Griegsy. So he's obviously been doing his research. He obviously spoke with, I thought it was very interesting, about Rangers being interested in him before. So before this summer. And there was lots of things just talking about coming in and setting the right examples, and he's been really impressed with the training so far. It's been, I think his words were to the effect of, it's even more than what he expected it to be. So he spoke really well, talked about Michael Biel meeting him in March. Probably go into these points a bit more detail, but yeah, it was really, really impressive.
Yeah, certainly talks a good game, and for someone who feels like he's been around for a long, long time, one of the key elements to me that stood out was, this is not a guy that's kind of decided he's coming here for an easy ride to pick up some trophies. You got a real sense of a burning desire to become the main man here at Ibrox, to win trophies, to re-establish himself in the England setup. He talked about that as well. So he just came across as a guy with burning desire to do well.
Yeah, a real kind of self-assurance and self-confidence as well, which I think is important for a goalkeeper. Listen, if he wanted to, sit on the bench somewhere and pick up big money, then he wouldn't be at Rangers. It's as easy as that. You look at goalkeepers in England and third choice keepers, especially ones that are homegrown, they're highly coveted. You've got Richard Wright at Man City, who he knows fine well he's never going to play, but he's picked up a Champions League and a Premier League this season. Done the treble.
Scott Carson.
Richard Wright, sorry, Scott Carson, yeah.
Well, Richard Wright has done the same over the years.
He was there. What was Richard Wright at City as well? I think he might have been.
I think he was at Arsenal going back, but it's been a while. I don't know if Richard Wright's long retired. I might be wrong.
Yeah, so I was wrong. It was Scott Carson. Many people call that the kind of dream job in football, isn't it? Being a third choice goalie at a big club, but I don't know if it is for certain players, especially if someone of Butland's age. He's only 30 years old, which is young for a goalkeeper. Look at Alan McGregor playing until he's 40. I think Buffon's still playing at 45. So he's plenty of miles in the tank left, and I think he wants to come to Rangers and be successful. I mean, I remember when I wrote the profile piece on Jack Butland and his move to Rangers. I spoke to Remy Matthews, who worked with him for a number of years at Crystal Palace as part of the goalkeeping group, and he said that Jack was one of the best leaders he's met in football. And those words really stuck with me. And when I spoke to him today, it came across. I watched the training video that was uploaded on Rangers TV the other day, and you can hear that he's very vocal already. And I imagine he'll go in there and he'll be one of the leaders in the group in the changing room straight away, I imagine.
Yeah, that came across loud and clear. Like I say, guys, go and check it out. It's a very impressive interview and really a guy that comes across fantastically well. Right, let's get us into this Saudi nonsense. Now, listen, we brought this up today, and it just came from a comment. There was no desire to bring it up. It came from a comment from one of the viewers, and an interesting point about Steven Gerrard and whether or not he might want to take some of the players that exist that are already at the club. And it's fair to say that has since grown arms and legs, because now what we've got is already significant amounts of links coming out. There's a link suggesting that Scott Wright might be on the agenda for a Saudi side. There's a link saying James Tavernier might be a target for Steven Gerrard. I think the thing about the Saudi thing is you've got to understand that we live in a world now where the media is dominated by traffic-orientated websites, and everyone is looking for an opportunity to build their traffic through transfer stories. It's the number one thing that everyone is looking to do if you're building your business model around that. And I think this Saudi league emergence is basically, it's like the golden goose for those kind of sites. So already today, I'm getting a sense, Euan, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, that this is going to be the big story of the summer, because it's very difficult to sort of say that no, there isn't interest from a Saudi club, because there's not many people in Scotland that have got links to those kind of networks, those kind of fundamentally those clubs. And I think what we're going to see is a lot of speculation that puts 2 and 2 together and comes up with maybe 5. Now, sometimes 2 and 2 might be put together and they come up with 4. It does make sense to me that Steven Gerrard, for example, a manager who has shown in his past that he likes to go and get people he's worked with. You'll look at Jermaine Defoe, you'll look at Ryan Kent, you'll look at Ovie Ejaria. There's numerous ones where he went back and got players that he knew. Aston Villa went and got Coutinho. It doesn't make sense that if Gerrard in his new job was wanting to come and raid players from Scotland, then he knows the players, he knows what they're capable of. So that does make sense, but I don't know. He was appointed yesterday. It seems a little tenuous to me that immediately Gerrard is linked with a move for the Rangers captain. But time will tell. I would not be surprised. What do you think?
Yeah, look, it's first of all, what I will say is I doubt very many journalists in the whole wide world have good connections with the Saudi royalty who are making these deals happen. So I take everything with a little bit of a pinch of salt, certainly at this stage. However, yeah, listen, it's just I don't know. Like, generally, I don't know. Like, it's I can understand why people will be speculating upon it, because you've got Steven Gerrard, you've got Rangers. Everybody knows Steven Gerrard's name when used with Rangers is great for traffic and stuff like that. So, but I mean, listen, if I'm wrong, but I don't see Scott Wright going to. I said it this morning. I don't think Scott Wright's going to be at the top of Steven Gerrard's transfer list if he's looking to bring players. I think it's just inevitable that players will get linked from Rangers to Gerrard's club now. Tavernier one's certainly interesting. I think if you're going to pick players that Gerrard knows and he trusts more than anyone, then Tavernier will be top of the list. And ultimately, let's be honest, Jonny, if these clubs or Gerrard's club or other Saudi clubs bid for Rangers players, then it's going to be very difficult for one the club to say no if it's a big transfer offer, and 2, for the player to say no. Especially depending on the age as well, that comes into it. If you're approaching your end of your career and you get a life-changing amount of money, then it's difficult. It's going to be really difficult for players to say no. But I would, I think with these things, it's even with the deal for Jota to Saudi, it came completely out of the blue. It wasn't reported in Scotland or England. It came from Saudi media outlet. So I think that's the place where you'll, if there's any genuine interest that you'd think would emerge from that side of things. And it, as of now, I've not seen anything today to suggest that certain reports are true.
Yeah, the people running Rangers are far from stupid. And if Saudi money comes in and wants to pick up players like James Tavernier, Connor Goldson, anyone in this Rangers squad, then if they offer enough money, then they'll go. It's as simple as that. The player's not going to say no to the kind of money that Jota was offered. Put it that way. I mean, that was just insane. We talked about it earlier on, the level of cash that we're talking about. It's tax-free, remember. So 190,000 is actually the equivalent of, in UK, 380,000 a week. So that kind of money is going to be very, very difficult, even for a James Tavernier who's pushing towards being a club legend. If it was offered, he's not. You can't even begin to criticise someone for taking that. This is not just talking about setting up their family; it's their family's family.
Generational
you're
wealth.
talking, money like £30 million over 3 years. It's just absolutely an obvious one to deal with. But I think we're way off getting to a stage where that's even like a real proposition for us to discuss. The one that I would think, I mean, if we're talking about dream scenario, you've got Glenn Kamara in there who wants to go. £5 million Rangers are looking for. For the Saudis, £5 million is equivalent to Rangers dropping probably 150,000 on a player. It's peanuts. And he would get a fantastic contract out of it. So that would be the dream scenario. But, you never get the dream scenario, Euan. They're always going to come in with players that you don't want to lose. I just think that you've got to adopt, and I'm sorry to say this, but I really liked Ange Postecoglou's mentality towards it. We've had an offer that we like. We've had an offer that suits us. We'll get a better player in and we move on. And I think Rangers have to kind of adopt that kind of ruthless mentality. The days of kind of having this sort of will they, won't they go transfer saga, 5 stories a day for 3 weeks, it just grinds everyone's gears. If the player wants to go, if the money can be brought in at the level that you want to let them go at, do it quickly, do it ruthlessly, and just move on like a shark. And I thought Postecoglou did that when he was at Celtic. The money that came in for Juranovic, for example, there was no kind of oohing and eyeing. It was just, right, done deal. Giacomakis was the same. And I think I would advise if there's this kind of money coming in from Saudi for Rangers players, I'd advise don't make it an emotional big deal out of it. It's an obvious opportunity to turn over the squad, and if big money comes in and it's an opportunity that presents itself, then Rangers just have to be light on their feet and be quick to move and make the kind of deals that will allow that to happen without being too disruptive to the squad. I mean, what I would say is that Tav and Goldson are huge parts of the dressing room, and to lose them would be difficult. But there's got to be an acceptance that should the kind of money that we're talking about be offered, then a player that's 30 and a player that's 31, you're never going to kind of... It doesn't make sense not to kind of think about something like that. But listen, I feel like I'm getting ahead of myself just even talking about the concept. It's a bit mad.
I mean, there's already reports coming out today that linking players there, so I think there's enough scope to talk about it. If we're playing dream scenario, I'd put Yanis Hadji's name in there as well, just because he's got a reputation in the game, with his surname and stuff like that. I know you mentioned Kamara. I'd put Hadji in that same bracket. But I mean, we're purely speculating on speculation. But essentially, we don't know. I think with JR's name, it's inevitable that these links are going to happen. But until there's if there's ever an offer made, and I think that's when you can talk about the merits of it. There'll be individual circumstances as well that players' families will come into it, and are they settled in Glasgow and stuff like that. So at the moment it's purely speculation.
Quite a few questions coming in about Michael Biel. Was there a sit down with Michael Biel? There wasn't, guys. There was a sit down with Michael Biel and the Sunday newspapers. So to try and explain how the sausage is made, normally what happens is when there's a press conference, there's a broadcast presser. So we fit into that category. So we would be alongside Sky, alongside Fan Media, alongside STV, Radio Clyde, for example. That's broadcast. And then there's the written media, which is the traditional newspapers. And then on top of that, there is also a Sunday press conference that takes place last of all between Michael Biel and the Sunday newspapers for use on Sunday. Obviously, today is Tuesday, so they have to kind of think outside the box. It's not about, for them, the news lines for tomorrow. It's not about anything like that. It's about trying to think of creative ways that you can do a piece with Michael Biel that's still relevant in 5 days' time, which is not the easiest, actually. So he sat down with the Sundays today, and all that content will be coming out on Sunday. Obviously, we'll find out what was said in due course, but he didn't sit down with the broadcasters today. Instead, it was the four of the new signings that were put up. So that's the situation as it stands with Michael Biel. So you won't be reading about Michael Biel in tomorrow's papers, for example. It'll be Sunday's papers that you'll get to hear what he had to say. In terms of other comments coming in, there's a lot of things people will have to get off their chest on this. People very impressed also with Jack Butland from the video. Ian Thompson saying the Saudis are happy to throw money at football like they have with Live Golf in order to gain influence. But if we can benefit from that by getting some players sold for inflated prices, so be it. Ian, I think that's a great comment, and I wholeheartedly agree. I think that's the way to look at it. See it as a positive. See it as a way to build Rangers for the future. There might be a little bit of short-term disruption should it happen, but you just focus on what's happening day to day, and I think that's the best way to deal with it. As the Aldo McNaught says, as the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase says, everyone has their price. Now that's a reference that Euan's too young to get.
I've got no idea who that is.
That's one of those ones that Josh should be looking quizzically at me as if to say, Jonny, can you explain this one to me? Euan, Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man, was a WWE character back in the days when it was known as the WWF. And he was a sort of... the character of the wrestler was a kind of rich, snobby, multi-millionaire who would buy people and buy off other wrestlers and get them to do his dirty work for him. He was a cracker back in the sort of mid 80s to mid 90s. He's one of the sort of legendary figures of that era. But listen, we don't want to talk about that anymore, do we? WWE are probably not doing my street cred much good by giving you...
I used to watch it when I was younger, but I'm not really interested in it, to be
honest. Big thanks to GM1307 to become a YouTube member. Of course, you can join our channel. It's $2.99 a month, and you get loads and loads of goodies. Not least do you get priority in terms of your comments being read out or us addressing them. You get all the content that we produce ad-free. You get 3 to 5 extra videos per week. We've got a big interview coming tomorrow with a former Rangers player that I'm going to be doing that should be a good one for everyone to get their teeth into on the YouTube channel. Of course, we'll still continue to do all the content that we've always done, but we're going to do a little bit more video stuff for you to get your teeth into it. Hopefully you really enjoy it, and hopefully you're enjoying it so far. Those of you that have signed up, and there's hundreds of you that have already done that. It's a massive help to us. The more members we get, the more we can invest in content. The more content we can do, everybody's a winner. Lots of comments coming in about WWF. Perhaps we can start a WWF show, actually, because it seems like there's a lot of people who quite like that little element there that we threw in. Euan.
I've always questioned, there seems to be quite a strong wrestling and Scottish football crossover. I always look at it on social media, and it's over my head. It's certainly not is that a sport?
It's sports entertainment, as Vince McMahon would probably say. Sports entertainment. Now, listen, everything's sports entertainment now. I've been saying this for many years. Vince McMahon was like essentially about 25 years before his time. If you look at what they're doing with Live Golf, as we say, the Saudis, so it's another element to discuss. You know, part of Live Golf is changing up the formats of traditional sport, because we all know if you've got 15-year-old sons or daughters, or if you've got nieces and nephews, they don't watch and consume sport the way that older generations do, where they sit down and watch something for 2 or 3 hours. It's all multi-screen. That's if you're lucky to get them down to watch an event live. A lot of the time they're watching clips on their phone instead, because why spend all that time when you've got so much to do on social media, so many options? So I think with that, you know, everyone's looking for ways to capture people's attention and address that attention span deficit that does exist with the social media generation. So I think sports entertainment, it's coming in a big way, and it'll affect every single sport, even football. I think I know myself that I don't know about you, Euan, but my attention span isn't what it used to be. And, you know, I am one of these guys that if I'm watching a non-Rangers game on the telly, then I tend to watch it multi-screen, you know, looking at my phone, looking at Twitter while I'm watching the game. And, you know, 20 years ago, I would have said that was ridiculous. Who would do that? But here I am doing it. Gavin Quinn saying, Stevie G after Scott Wright, any truth in that, Jonny? I've asked and I'm waiting to hear a response. I'd be surprised, put it that way, but I don't know for sure. I'm basing that on my gut instinct. I'd be surprised, but I'm waiting to hear back from sources on that one. Scott Wright is a good player. Is he really fitting into the levels that we're talking about of the players that are going to Saudi? I don't think so, but I could be completely wrong. Scott Wright has a lot of skills, a lot of talent. To me, he's a player that's kind of not quite put it all together. When he does put it all together, he'll be a great player, especially at the level that we're at now. If we're talking about Scottish Premiership, I think Scott Wright is more than decent. But if we're talking about going to that next level, I don't really buy it. I don't see it. Glenn Kamara, totally different story. Established international, played at big championships, performed really well in the Europa League. That's a different one to me. But Scott Wright, I think I would be surprised. And the kind of money that Rangers are talking about for Scott Wright, I don't think is the kind of huge bucks that Saudi coming in to make an offer would be one that makes sense, to be honest. But I've been wrong before. I've been wrong on this video before. I don't have any information on this. It's just my hunch.
Another thing to Jonny is it's now 4 o'clock. We know the period between Rangers announcing players is usually 4:30 and 6:30, but I don't think that Dessers will be today. I think you're looking at, put my neck out and say Thursday for Dessers being announced. I don't think that's going to be done today.
Okay, that's interesting. Yes, I was expecting that to get done today, or perhaps it's going to...
Well, I literally said in the morning briefing I thought it would be done today, so it's an egg and face moment, but you've got to sometimes admit your errors, and I'll go with... I'm hearing it could be Thursday for Dessers.
Right, okay. Well, listen, things can change. This is the thing about transfer windows. Everything can look like it's going to happen, and then the reporting is correct up until the point that it's not correct anymore, you know? We're all dealing with incomplete information around these stories, and then sometimes something can just change the direction of travel a little bit. One of the other ones that's coming up, Josh Maja. Obviously, we've got a piece on the site saying why and what he would add to Rangers. We were back in for Josh Maja, who's available for free. Yes, he is. I think he's left his club and is available. It looks like the legal issues seem to have been somewhat resolved enough that he can depart anyway. That one has gone kind of quiet, though, I have to say. Euan, is that one that you think will be on Rangers' radar at this moment? Or do you think, given that Dessers looks like it's done, Danilo is someone they're still interested in, is Josh Maja likely?
Well, so to clear it up, the Bordeaux had their appeal thrown out last week, so that essentially leaves Maja free to leave, which he has done. it was they could go to the court of arbitration, but it's impossible to deal with this situation because I think the team they were playing, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, in that game that got postponed, they were also fighting against relegation. So, if you have to replay the game and it can have consequences at the top of the league and the bottom of the league, so it's just not going to happen. Bordeaux are going to be in League 2 next season. So Madja as a free agent, Rangers can talk to him. Listen, we know for a fact that there's interest from Rangers in the player. So it's now a case of probably looking at budgets, looking at other options, also just looking at the depth Rangers have in that position and seeing what is it a case of maybe one having to go out before another one comes in. But I suppose the risk element with the Madja one is that other clubs can offer him contracts now, and there'll be a lot of competition for him. So I don't know. If I'll be honest, I'll something I'll look into this week. I get some more information on that, but yeah, it's difficult to say really. I mean, you're hearing conflicting things on Danilo as well. Are Rangers going to go back in now? They're going to wait till the end of the window. It's all up in the air. I think Rangers are okay at the moment. It's in that striking positions. I think they need one more. I still think they need one more player in there. So I think those two are the options that you keep hearing. But you never know in the transfer window because you've got English clubs who are coming back to pre-season this week, I believe. So they might be assessing their squads and bringing players in, and that could leave players free to go. So I mean, it's a delicate situation. There's also the kind of Champions League. If Rangers can qualify for the group stages and the finances involved with that, could that maybe allow for a bit more movement? So it's a waiting game, really.
Yeah, absolutely is a waiting game, and I think it's important to remember that it's the 4th of July, and Rangers have signed 5 already, with a 6th pretty much nailed on. So it's serious amount of work has been done. I remember this time last year there was it seemed to start quite slowly, and there was a bit of disgruntlement, and then all of a sudden there was lots of action. But the club, I think they've got their ducks in a row this year and have been very, very organised and getting things done ahead of time. So all these guys are going to come in very, very early in the new regime. Well, it's not a new regime at the moment, but in terms of the first pre-season under Michael Biel, and it gives them an opportunity to really shape them in his own image, get the ideas into them, which is massively important for the season ahead. Absolutely huge. And we'll see how they actually fare once they settle in. I'm very, very excited about a number of these guys. Just in terms of the guys you spoke to, just generally, Euan, I mean, were you quite impressed by the kind of confidence in the way they spoke of? Obviously, you can't talk about specifics of what was said, but as a general point, I mean, someone like, for example, Sam Lammer's quite a confident guy, or?
Yeah, I really shouldn't watch what I say here before I get reprimanded. But no, I mean, I thought they all spoke well. That's probably all I can say. I said in the video the other day that I think Lammers is going to be I don't know if it's a surprise package because he's the one that Rangers are spending the most money on as of now. But I think he's the one who could really be a big player next season. I think technically he's really, really good. I think if you look at the kind of profile of players that the Biel's got, the kind of Cantwells and stuff like that, who are really good technically, that they could link up with those players pretty well. I think Lammers he's probably the player that I feel has the most potential to excel. I think I said in the video with Derek on Monday, I put Lammers and Dujon Sterling as the two players that I think are the most excitable from who's been signed so far.
Yeah, I really like the idea of what Lammers can bring. A guy who's incredibly two-footed, who's got that ability to take the ball in tight spaces. I think that's really exciting and something that Rangers have desperately needed in that number 10 position. I don't think he's going to score barrel loads of goals, and I don't think that's his game really. But at the same time, he's a guy that's just got quality, and if you can bring quality to the table at Rangers, you're halfway there, because you're going up against teams that are significantly less talented than you are. So if you've just got that wee sprinkling of stardust, it can make all the difference. And for the season ahead, I really think he's going to be a major player. A few people asking about how you join the YouTube channel, guys. You just go into the homepage for YouTube, and then next to in the top sort of right hand corner, there's a little join button. You just click on that. Now, I think I've heard some varying reports that it's more difficult on iPhone, more difficult on Android. Some people say it's easy, some people say it's not. My advice is get on the desktop and sign up there, because it's definitely very easy if you're on the desktop. So you can sign up, and obviously for $2.99 you get all these extra elements that I've already discussed. In terms of the rest of the week, Euan, we've already sort of suggested we think now that Dessers is going to be a little bit later on. Do you think that there's any more likelihood of other signings coming in, or you think 6, that's where we're at for this Germany trip?
Yeah, I think it's looking like that. There's also conflicting reports on Panzo as well. I think people other people with really good sources are saying that it's done and it's close. My sources on it say it's not, but that's just the nature of the beast at the moment. On Panzo, it's went really, really quiet on Cifuentes. I thought there'd be a bit of movement this week due to this contract situation, but that's went pretty quiet. I think ideally that Michael Biel would have one more in before they jet off to Germany. I'm not exactly sure when it is they fly out to Germany, because I thought they were actually in Germany and they're staying for the Hoffenheim game, but they're going to Germany, coming back, and then going out again. Yeah, so I think Michael Biel would ideally have one more in before that Germany trip, and I think he will. And Dessers, other than that, I don't know. I generally don't know. I think that deals can move quickly and deals can move slowly. It's a case of I think it's no secret the players that Rangers are interested in.
I don't think it's that much different from Football Manager, in a sense that, you've got a budget in Football Manager, and if you're in charge of Rangers or Aston Villa or Manchester United or Juventus in Football Manager, you've got targets that you want, but you can't quite afford it. So you have to think, well, who's my number 2 in that area? I know I need a right winger, and it's the same. It's a bric-a-brac. It's doing a puzzle really and pulling it all together, and you've got to try and get the best out of the money that you've got. And listen, we know that how a scouting team works. They'll give you 5 options for each position. You'll say, I want this type of player. And then you'll rank them. And sometimes that number 1 isn't available, but number 3 is. You can't get number 2 unless you put a little bit more money in. Or actually, number 1 then becomes available 3 weeks later. And you've just got to do a little bit of ducking and diving to make it work. And I think with Rangers, the incomings have been pretty fluid, pretty impressive. It's happened quite quickly, but the outgoings, I notice, have not. And my reading on the situation is that the club probably would have been a bit more comfortable if they'd been able to sell, for example, a Glenn Kamara, Scott Wright, and Antonio Cholak. There's a number of them that I think if offers came in, they would accept them. So that would have given them, I think, a little bit more leeway to go out into the market and make something happen. But, we're early doors. It's the 4th of July, and I think there's still plenty of time for stuff to happen. And to get 5 players, potentially 6, I think we're very, very confident it's going to be 6. And at this stage, I don't think you can sniff at that, Euan. I think that's a fairly good start to the window. Cifuentes is one that I think will come in. I'm surprised also it's taken this long when you take into account he's only got 6 months left on his deal. How hard are LA actually pushing that one? Because I mean they're not in the best situation. Do they want a player that's going to hang on right till the bitter end of his contract? Maybe they do. Maybe they've got their own reasons that I don't understand, the idiosyncrasies of the MLS and how their season works and what they've got in front of them. So perhaps there's reasons for it that we don't quite comprehend, but you would think that would have been an easier deal to get across the line, and it hasn't looked that way. Now, carry on.
There's players to come back as well. Obviously, Tom Lawrence was in the video, training by himself. Kamar Roof, I don't think he's in the video, but from being there today, he was out in the grass today as well. I don't know if he was in the whole team. There's a bit of confusion over Ben Davies. I don't think he's been pictured in the videos. I don't think he was training today, but he was. When we were leaving, he was kind of going out to do some work, so I don't think there's anything serious there. So there's all these players to come back in, especially Roof and Lawrence, who really didn't contribute last season due to injury. So I think Lawrence could be a big player under Biel as well. So he's definitely one to watch his progress.
Yeah. I'm interested in seeing that. I'm not so sure. I think Tom Lawrence is a great player, but I think there's going to be a level of him getting up to fitness that's going to take a bit of time, and then I worry that by the time he's ready, he's already far behind, and then getting him into that team is going to be more difficult. But time will tell. He's certainly a talent. Dean Milne asking, is Germany trip just one game? It's no games, Dean. The game against Hoffenheim, as Euan's just said earlier, is they go to Germany for the training camp, they come back, and then they go back out for that game. So there's not a tour or anything like that. It's a closed door camp in the middle of nowhere, and there's no media attending at all. So it's going to be a chance for Michael Biel to get the players down, get them absolutely focused with no outside influence, and really drill them for what he wants for the season ahead. So it's going to be a very, very important element to the pre-season campaign and the pre-season programme. Listen, we're going to call it a day there. I think we've done a fair amount. Euan's done admirably, considering he can't talk about 3 of the 4 players that he's talked to today. But he's given you a sort of general flavour of what was said. And certainly you'll see on the channel that Jack Butland is there, the full 10 minutes with Jack. And again, just to reiterate, very impressive, I think, and lots to talk about on the back of what he had to say. Guys, I know that many of you are joining up for the YouTube channel, but we've also got, if you like our writing on the Rangers Review website, it's £12 for a full calendar year at the moment. So if you go and sign up there, 12 quid gets you in the door for a full year. It's less than £1. Well, it's £1 a month, actually. And obviously that's absolute peanuts by today's standards. A newspaper for one day will cost you a lot more than £1. Doesn't matter what newspaper it is. So, if you want to go on and support us, it's there. Otherwise, you can support us if you really like the video content on YouTube. But listen, thanks to you all for joining us today. As I say, tomorrow we'll be back with a morning briefing, and of course, we'll have a subscriber-only video. As I say, it's a Rangers, former Rangers player coming on to chat to me about their time at the club and the season ahead. So it should be fantastic. Until then, thanks for watching, and we'll catch up with you soon.